Is it true that you tricked Sylvester Stallone, who is he a friend and a rival or just a rival?
No. In the 80s, he was just a rival.
Just a rival.
It was just competition. It was all about who is making bigger movies, more definition in the muscle.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood history. From the unstoppable Terminator to the jungle warfare of Predator, he built a career as the ultimate action hero of the 1980s and 1990s. With muscles of steel, a thick Austrian accent, and one-liners that became part of pop culture, Arnold wasn't just an actor, he was an icon. But behind the big-screen triumphs there was another story, a story of rivalry, grudges, and outright hatred. Hollywood is fueled by egos, and no one had a bigger one than Arnold in his prime. Competing for the same roles, fighting for top billing, and clashing with directors and co-stars, Arnold built as many enemies as he did blockbuster films. Some of these rivalries were legendary, involving other action stars who refused to let him dominate the genre. Others were more personal, clashes with co-stars he simply couldn't stand on set, or actors whose politics and personalities collided with his own. And while a few of these feuds mellowed with age, others left scars that never healed. Today, we're counting down the 6 actors Arnold Schwarzenegger hated the most. And while some names may not surprise you, like his infamous feud with Sylvester Stallone, others will leave you stunned. Because when it came to grudges, Arnold never held back. This is the untold story of Hollywood's biggest action star, and the 6 actors who felt the full weight of his hatred. In the 1980s and 1990s, Hollywood's box office was a battlefield, and action movies were the weapon of choice. At the center of it all stood Arnold Schwarzenegger, a former bodybuilder, turned megastar who had transformed himself into the face of an entire genre. But if Arnold was the king of action, he had no shortage of rivals ready to take his throne. And some of those rivalries quickly turned into open hatred. The most famous feud of Arnold's career was with Sylvester Stallone. The two were constantly compared. Arnold with the Terminator and Predator, Stallone with Rocky and Rambo. Both men had muscles, both had accents, and both were desperate to dominate the global box office. The tension between them was so intense that Arnold later admitted he would deliberately mock Stallone's films in interviews, while Stallone would take shots at Arnold's acting skills. The feud reached a point where they were sabotaging each other in the press. Stallone even admitted years later that he hated Arnold during that time, describing their rivalry as violent competition. One of the strangest moments came when Arnold tricked Stallone into starring in the disastrous comedy Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Arnold pretended he was interested in the script, knowing Stallone would try to snatch it away. Stallone fell for the trap, and the film flopped, much to Arnold's delight. That kind of underhanded move showed just how deep their rivalry ran. But Stallone wasn't the only action star to feel Arnold's wrath. Jean-Claude Van Damme, the muscles from Brussels, was another competitor who got under Arnold's skin. Van Damme was known for his martial arts moves and flashy personality, and Arnold often dismissed him as arrogant and difficult to work with. Their feud came to a head at a party at Stallone's house in the early 90s, where Arnold reportedly egged Van Damme into nearly starting a fight. Van Damme later bragged that he could have taken Arnold down, but those who were there said Arnold had no interest in settling their rivalry with fists. He preferred to crush opponents at the box office. Even lesser rivals like Steven Seagal weren't spared. Arnold once called Seagal out of shape and a joke, mocking his martial arts credentials and dismissing him as someone who would never measure up in the action arena. Seagal, for his part, didn't hold back either, often criticizing Arnold's acting ability and dismissing his political ambitions. In truth, these rivalries weren't just about box office numbers, they were about egos. The action genre was built on larger-than-life characters, and Arnold knew that to stay on top, he couldn't let anyone else steal the spotlight. So he fought his competitors not just with muscles and machine guns, but with words, pranks, and a willingness to humiliate them in public. Looking back today, Arnold and Stallone eventually made peace, even becoming friends and co-starring in The Expendables. But during their prime, the hatred was real, and it defined an era where action stars weren't just fighting on screen, but behind the scenes as well. Arnold Schwarzenegger's rivalries weren't limited to Hollywood's box office giants. Some of his most bitter feelings were directed at people he actually had to work alongside. For Arnold, the set of a film wasn't just a workplace, it was his kingdom. He demanded discipline, intensity, and respect, and when co-stars fell short of those expectations, sparks flew. One example was Richard Dawson, his co-star in the 1987 sci-fi action thriller The Running Man. Dawson, a former game show host, was cast as the film's sadistic television producer. Behind the scenes, however, Arnold allegedly grew to despise him. Dawson was known for his arrogant behavior and clashes with the crew, and Arnold made no secret of his disdain. He reportedly told friends that working with Dawson was one of his least favorite on-set experiences, later describing him as a man who believed the movie revolved entirely around his character. Arnold felt Dawson constantly tried to overshadow him, something he never tolerated. Another tense partnership came with James Belushi, who starred alongside Arnold in Red Heat, 1988. Belushi's laid-back, wisecracking style clashed with Arnold's disciplined approach. While the two managed to complete the film, Arnold reportedly found Belushi unprofessional and difficult to respect. Belushi, on the other hand, openly admitted that Arnold's intensity was a little too much for a comedy-action hybrid. The result was a film that performed decently, but the behind-the-scenes chemistry was strained. Arnold also struggled with Sharon Stone during the filming of Total Recall, 1990. Stone played his wife in the movie, and while their on-screen chemistry was explosive, off-screen, Arnold often complained about her diva-like behavior. Rumors swirled that Sharon constantly questioned direction, sought more attention in certain scenes, and argued with cast members. Arnold later joked in interviews that working with her prepared him for politics, because it required patience and diplomacy at all times. Though he delivered the comment with humor, those close to the production confirmed that Arnold found her exhausting to work with. Then there was Linda Hamilton, who starred with Arnold in Terminator 2, Judgment Day. While Arnold respected her talent and work ethic, their relationship was far from warm. Hamilton's insistence on physical intensity, she trained obsessively for the role, sometimes clashed with Arnold's own methods. Friends of both stars described the atmosphere on set as icy, with little off-camera interaction. Arnold, used to dominating sets, found it difficult to share equal spotlight with a female co-star who was just as imposing. Though they maintained professional respect, it was hardly a friendship. And of course, Arnold wasn't afraid to let the world know when he didn't respect someone's craft. On more than one occasion, he criticized fellow actors who he believed coasted on charm rather than discipline. He once described certain Hollywood stars as lazy and unprepared, though he stopped short of naming names. Industry insiders speculated that this was aimed at co-stars who clashed with his structured, almost militaristic approach to filmmaking. For Arnold, making a film wasn't just about delivering lines, it was about total commitment. And when his co-stars fell short of his expectations, he didn't hide his contempt. These on-set clashes didn't always make headlines at the time, but behind the scenes, they fueled his growing list of Hollywood enemies. If Arnold Schwarzenegger's rivalries on set were heated, his battles off set were sometimes even more explosive. Hollywood isn't just about making movies, it's about power, politics, and public image. And Arnold, with his larger-than-life personality and later his career in politics, often found himself clashing with fellow actors in ways that went far beyond the camera. One of the most notable names on Arnold's list of enemies was George Clooney. The two shared the screen in the infamous Batman and Robin, 1997, and while the movie was universally panned, Arnold came away with more than just embarrassment. Clooney reportedly mocked Arnold's $25 million paycheck for playing Mr. Freeze, quipping that the film's budget had gone into Arnold's trailer rather than the production. Arnold, fiercely protective of his reputation, never forgave the slight. Behind the scenes, he also saw Clooney as the embodiment of a Hollywood liberal elite, a political worldview that clashed completely with his own. Arnold also butted heads with Ed Begley Jr., a passionate environmental activist. As California's governor, Arnold positioned himself as a moderate Republican who supported environmental initiatives, but Begley often accused him of hypocrisy. While not a feud, over movie roles, this public clash revealed Arnold's thin patience for Hollywood figures who questioned his sincerity. He reportedly dismissed Begley as self-righteous and privately mocked his activism, saying it was all about headlines rather than real change. Another thorn in Arnold's side was Michael Clark Duncan, with whom he briefly overlapped in industry events during the late 90s and early 2000s. Duncan, best known for The Green Mile, once made a joke about Arnold's acting chops, calling him the king of one-liners, not emotions. While meant as humor, Arnold was notoriously sensitive about his acting critiques and considered it disrespectful. He never spoke warmly of Duncan afterward, even though their paths rarely crossed on set. But perhaps one of the deepest divides Arnold experienced was with Alec Baldwin. The two never worked together, but Baldwin, outspoken about politics, routinely criticized Republican figures in Hollywood. During Arnold's time as governor of California, Baldwin publicly mocked his policies, calling him a bad actor in politics, too. Arnold, who prided himself on his political crossover appeal, was infuriated by Baldwin's attacks. Those close to him said he despised Baldwin, not just as a political critic, but as someone who represented the opposite of everything Arnold valued: discipline, hard work, and calculated control of his image. Even with actors he respected, Arnold's ego often caused friction. He once admitted that in his prime, he couldn't stand watching other action stars succeed. This extended beyond Stallone and Van Damme to actors like Bruce Willis and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. While he eventually befriended both, insiders revealed that Arnold initially viewed them as threats to his throne. Willis, as part of the Die Hard franchise, represented a new kind of everyman action hero, while The Rock was poised to inherit the muscle-bound superstar crown. Arnold's competitive nature didn't allow him to celebrate their success at first. He saw them as enemies by default. Hollywood thrives on rivalries, but Arnold's grudges always ran deeper than the industry standard. For him, it wasn't just about screen time. It was about dominance. Whether the feud was sparked by political clashes, ego bruises, or public mockery, Arnold wasn't one to forgive or forget. And those who crossed him quickly found themselves on the wrong side of the Terminator. Now that we've explored the rivalries, the on-set clashes, and the political feuds, it's time to pull back the curtain and reveal the 6 names that stood out above all others, the actors Arnold Schwarzenegger truly hated the most. Each feud tells a story not just of Hollywood egos, but of a man determined to stay at the top, no matter who he angered along the way. Arnold's partner in Red Heat may have been meant to provide comic relief, but behind the camera, they're working. Relationships soured. Arnold disliked Belushi's laid-back, almost careless approach to filmmaking. For a man who treated every set like a military operation, Belushi's improvisational style felt lazy and unprofessional. While they managed to finish the film, Arnold reportedly vowed never to work with him again. During the filming of Total Recall, Arnold found Stone's diva-like behavior unbearable. Constant disputes with the director and demands for attention rubbed him the wrong way. While he joked about it years later, those close to the production said Arnold's patience was tested daily. Stone became one of the rare co-stars Arnold openly criticized long after the cameras stopped rolling. Arnold's experience on Batman and Robin was bad enough, but Clooney's mocking attitude about his massive paycheck crossed the line. To Arnold, it wasn't just an insult. It was a reminder that Clooney looked down on him as a mere action star. Combine that with their opposing political worldviews, and Clooney quickly landed on Arnold's permanent bad side. Few feuds were as public as this one. Baldwin, never shy about his political opinions, openly criticized Arnold's time as California governor. To Arnold, Baldwin represented everything he disliked about Hollywood's liberal elite: loud, self-righteous, and willing to take cheap shots in the press. Even without sharing a set, the hostility between the two was palpable. Tudyao. Rivalry between Arnold and Van Damme was legendary. From competing for roles to nearly coming to blows at Stallone's house, the animosity between the two action titans was real. Arnold mocked Van Damme as arrogant and undisciplined, while Van Damme claimed Arnold feared him in a real fight. Whether in the gym, on set, or at the box office, these two couldn't stand each other. At the very top of Arnold's hate list was his greatest rival, Sylvester Stallone. The feud defined the entire action movie era. They insulted each other in interviews, sabotaged scripts, and fought for the same audiences. Arnold's prank that tricked Stallone into starring in Stop or My Mom Will Shoot was the ultimate act of petty revenge. Though the two later buried the hatchet and became close friends during their prime, Arnold truly despised Stallone. Their hatred wasn't just personal, it was professional warfare that shaped Hollywood history.